On this week's show, we're talking about some new exciting leaks for Resident Evil 9, Nintendo teasing some potential Switch 2 details ahead of the big reveal, and Warner Brothers Games doubling down on Hogwarts Legacy, Batman, and Game of Thrones. All that and much, much more on this week's GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone, and welcome back to your weekly gaming podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, where we get together and round up all the video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Just search for the GamerGuild Podcast or GamerGuild TV and you will find us there. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside the returning Mr. Rob. Welcome back, sir.
Kept you waiting, huh?
You have kept us waiting. It's been, how long?
It's been a long...
Too long
all
to
the
count.
days blend into the days, the weeks, the months blend into one at this point.
They really do. But thank you for jumping in and joining us. Richie is away this week. He's away in Liverpool celebrating his birthday because he's just turned 48. So congratulations, Richie, for the birthday weekend. But we do have a great show lined up for you all, as I mentioned. Got plenty to talk about. But before we get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here, like this very podcast, like our weekly live streams, and all the other great content in between. As a short note, Rob, we are 35 subscribers away from 2,000.
Nice.
So finally we are coming up on that 2K mark, which we hit 1,000 so quickly. Well, not so quickly, but quickly enough for us. And then we hit, I think, 1,500, and then we just kind of froze dead. And we're going to put that down to Stadia utterly collapsing because that was
our...
I mean,
you have put it in context where like the platform this podcast was built for also collapsed at the same time. Right?
Yeah, Google shit the bed on that one, which in turn meant like we had to do. We tried loads of things, and of course you were involved. We had talking to PS and XPass and stuff, and then we focused in on this, and it's kind of took us a good probably year and a half to get some solid traction. But we've seen some our views and stuff have really started garnering some responses, so it's great to see the algorithm. We've maybe crawled ourselves out of that YouTube algorithm dungeon, and we're now on this cusp where, we're getting interest. So anyone new who's just tuning in, thank you very much for checking out the content. We do appreciate you all. And as I said, Rob, we've got a great show. A couple of things, points of housekeeping. We have a 30% Black Friday sale coming up. We're telling all of our audience to not buy anything from our shop for now, because there's a 30% one-day sale on Black Friday. So I feel really guilty saying, go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hoodie. And then you could save 30% in just like 2 and a bit weeks' time. So we're just saying, like, don't buy it for now. Go look at it close at the time.
I mean, if you want to buy things on both days, that's... that's cool.
Do both, but it's like, trying to save everyone the pennies out there. And of course, weekly live streams as well. I've just gone back and with Richie, and we've continued our Gears of War 2 playthrough. So we're in the final, we've got one final video, probably this Thursday is going to be the finale. Really enjoying Gears still. Kind of building up that momentum towards E-Day. Just being there day one on a brand new title entry. It's really, really exciting. And I've also gone back, Rob, as I like to Indiana Jones, leading up to The Great Circle, which comes out on the 9th of December. I've dusted off some of the old games. I've gone back and played the PlayStation 2's Emperor's Tomb, Staff of Kings, and the Lego Indiana Jones games, kind of like just getting myself up. I'm watching the movies with my wife as well, so we're kind of really getting in that indie phase. Up now for members. Emperor's Tomb, not too bad. Staff of Kings, really, really bad. Like,
I was going to say, how do those PS2 games hold up?
Like the videos are going up for members early. So members, if you're a Gamer Guild hero, thank you very much for your extra support. 99p if you want to get those videos early. They're going to drop well ahead of time, so you're going to get them a week, if not more, ahead of general public viewing. But yeah, the first one came out like 2005-ish. So it's quite old by today's standards. The second one, Staff of Kings, came out 2 years after Uncharted. So just to give you context of like what the gaming landscape was like then. So you've got Uncharted from Naughty Dog. 2 years later, Indiana Jones, which is obviously so inspired by Naughty Dog, came out. So you would expect like maybe taking some hints and tips and...
It literally just lifts
I mean, you could, yeah. It's so bad, it's unbelievable. Like, I was reading about it and it said it was in development for PS3 and 360, never put out that version. So this is a PS2 version while the PS3 exists. So this is like a last gen only attempt at a game. They did like a DS and a Portal and a Wii version and stuff, so it's very, very many variations of this game. The Wii one in particular got criticised because it had motion control stuff, which you can imagine just ruined the game even more, as it did many games. But yeah, there's just something like I only played it for an hour because I could only bring myself to play it for an hour. But just comparing it to Uncharted directly, it's just such a bad game all around. Like nothing about it.
What's like what's the mechanic? It's like third person, platformy, puzzly.
Yeah, pretty much like what you'd expect, but it's trapped in, I would say, kind of like Tomb Raider 2, 3 like levels of PS1, like the movement and the fighting. It just like, and yeah, you can use your whip to do stuff, but it's obviously it's not Harrison Ford. Obviously, the likeness is poor because it's PlayStation 2, but it's just that playing the Emperor's Tomb the week prior was better, and I gave it grace because of its age, and I was like, I'll give it a break. But then knowing that this came out after Uncharted, I could not give it the same pass. It was like it can't get it. So yeah, that was
especially when you consider Uncharted, like Uncharted 1 was like almost like a proof of concept, and then number 2 was one that really, really pushed the genre forward.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
Number 1 was very, I think like Nathan Drake did more for like that franchise than the actual mechanics of that game, right? It was good, but it wasn't groundbreaking like number 2 was. So yeah, for that to be poor in comparison is
it's unforgivable. It's absolutely baffling. And again, it was received poorly. It's reviewed poorly as well. And no surprise, we hadn't got an Indiana Jones game since. So that kind of like just killed it. Obviously, we'd never really had them. It was supposed to be a tie-in with King of the Crystal Skull. And they never quite managed that either. So not only did the movie fail, the game failed as well. And it seemingly just killed the Indiana Jones until this summer's Dial of Destiny. So
I think a lot of like, especially like movie tie-ins or like movie franchise games, for a period that could be either exceptional or terrible. But like it was a bit of like a wild, especially the James Bond games. They were like just played by their own rules. But then it got to a cycle where every single movie tie-in game was just basically trash.
Yeah,
like the Iron Man game and stuff like that. And then it kind of all died off, didn't they? Only to come back now in a bit more of a better fashion.
Hopefully, the early previews of The Great Circle are going down really, really well. Everyone's saying just it feels like an Indiana Jones game, like with the puzzle solving and the exploration and taking like people's clothes to like navigate the environment in stealth. Like you said, it's actually a lot of people described it's closer to Dishonored than like Wolfenstein, which is like okay, I can get with that. But
and that was the thing we were skeptical of, like whether they could make it feel like Indiana Jones and not just some guy
pretending to be.
Yeah. That's good.
So yeah, it's interesting. And then I've got the Lego Indiana Jones, which you know what you're getting in for with a Lego game, right?
Yeah.
It's fun puzzle solving. It's tongue-in-cheek comedy using Lego to recreate moments from the movies. So Indiana Jones Lego 1 and 2. There was a 2 in a year, 2 in 2 years. Sorry, you got the second one is just the King of the Crystal Skull and other elements, so I'm curious to see what a whole Lego game of that looks like. But yes, that's what I've been checking out, Rob. Obviously, you've not been on the show for quite some time. What have you been playing over the last couple of months?
So I've finally dug into the Final Fantasy VII remake. It took me a while to do because I was kind of like a bit reticent to. I guess I thought it might tarnish my memory of like the original games, and it took me like a couple of hours to kind of get used to the new style and get used to, I guess, like it's not like a carbon copy remake. But no, I've been really enjoying it so far. I think I'm about halfway through the first.
Right.
If I had to guess, because it only goes up to like when you escape Midgar. But no, I'm really enjoying that. And then played through Space Marine 2. Really enjoyed that.
Yes, I finished it about a week ago. Thought it was fantastic. Like I was saying to Richie, I was describing it. It's just a video game. Like it doesn't take itself seriously. It's just you're pretty much going from room to room, area to area. Just kill every fucker in that area and then move on. Yeah. That's as simple as it gets for the most part. But it's so fun. Yeah. So
for me, it's just like a Game of Thrones, not Game of Thrones, sorry, Gears of War esque game with like the World War Z kind of mechanics.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those hordes were so good. Like the motion of them all, and just you peppering them with bullets and just watch them get wiped out. There's a very satisfying gameplay loop I found in it.
Yeah.
And like it could have went a little bit deeper with maybe the weapon mechanics now. With it being a sequel, I thought like I would like maybe to be able to upgrade my bolt gun a little bit and do tweaks rather than have to drop it for a different one every other section of the level. I thought they could have done a bit more there.
I think that's definitely the one for me. I liked it, and I tried to get into the multiplayer, but I think I kind of hit that. I don't know. I hit like the maximum depth of the game, and like I was just kind of like, okay, I think I'm done with this now.
I had the same thing. I finished the campaign. I did some of I think they're called operations, and like you said, it was like, oh, I'm satisfied. I don't need to keep, and that's the great thing with single player games that don't give you a 40, 50 hour campaign. I was like, I played it for maybe 20 hours, give or take. Totally satiated, had a great time. We'll 100% check out the inevitable third entry we get. But more importantly, I was explaining to Richie, it's opened up my curiosity towards the Warhammer 40k world again. And I'm like, I'm really interested in what Henry Cavill's going to do with the show and the movies, like taking ownership of it all. But I'm thinking like Bolt Gun, also like a first person one. I think PS3 just dropped a trailer for the one that looks like Doom. I forgot what it's called now, but there's like 4 or 5 Warhammer games all in like rotation now. But just I was like, man, Ultramarines are cool. And I was reading about all the different factions. And I was watching YouTube. I think we were talking.
Yeah, you got sucked into the YouTube.
Into the YouTube algorithm of like now I'm watching like lore videos of how the universe was created, and
it's like 2 hours long for the
who the Emperor is and how that all ties in. It was like I'm there for it, and it's really fun.
I think the funny thing is because like we got into like more Warhammer Fantasy as a kid, like like an 11, 12-year-old, and like. You don't realize in the 40k universe, like just how like they use that joke term like grim dark, don't they? But like all like the lore's so deep onto it and like quite horrifying in some regards, and you just don't appreciate that as a kid. You just think, oh, these like giant robot things killing aliens and stuff.
Yeah. How much pocket money can I scrape together to buy one figure, one metal figure? And the glue never worked. The glue never stuck the arms on the metal figures because you needed a different type of glue. But as a daft kid, you didn't know that.
Yeah, because you had like the plastic glue.
Yeah.
And every single glue was like 4 times the price of just. It was the same glue, but it was just branded Games Workshop, so it was like 4 times the price.
Yeah, they have everyone over a barrel with that. But yeah, we did fantasy. I remember because we had, if you remember, playing in my parents' garage. We had like the whole board of wood with the sand on it and the rocks stuck.
Yeah,
we never knew how to play. We just kind of moved the figures around and pretended they were doing shit. But great time. I've still got a box up in the loft of all my old figurines.
I think I might somewhere.
I get them and loads of the Lord of the Rings ones, but I never 40k was something like I never really got into. I think because I committed so much to the fantasy one, it was like I don't really have the funds to get a hold. I had a couple of Ultramarines, I think, and one of the little tanks, but I used to just like buying the magazine and just looking at how cool like the setups were for some people's. But
yeah, like it was saying, the thing is like they don't make the fantasy game anymore.
Do they not?
No, it's like just completely gone. Because apparently it was only like 10% of the sales. So they ended the universe, and then they made like a they put like I think on like round bases now, so it's more like 40k, which is a bit of a shame.
I mean, it could always have like an anniversary thing. Did they still do the Lord of the Rings one then? I feel like I saw something. There's new figures coming out for the War of Rohirrim movie.
So you think so?
New ones, but that'd be cool.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been great. Have you got anything in the pipeline for the future, or is it purely just remake into rebirth straight away? Or
I think so. Yeah. I'm
like
trying to like.
Hours.
Yeah, like that's like my couch gaming time, and like because I'm working so much now, I try. I'm less kind of willing to sit on the PC playing a game for ages because I'm like, it would be like okay, do 10 hours. Sat at my desk working, and then like another 2 sat at my desk playing a game, and like I'm just a bit like averse to that now. But when I'm doing like when I need a break from like couch gaming, I'm back on Lord of the Rings, Battle for Middle Earth. I went back to that just because why not?
Good old.
Again, I've been sucked into another YouTube like rabbit hole of watching people react to watching Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I've done that a few times before.
I think it's something like I can never experience these movies for the first time again. So I want to like experience it by proxy almost. It's a bit of a weird sensation.
No, I've done that myself as well. Where you watch them like, are they crying at the right moment? Are they getting, like, do they understand the characters? And it's always
it's like that person called Boromir an asshole. Okay, let me school them in the comments on why Boromir is not an asshole.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but yeah, it's again good old faithful ones to go back to. But should we get into the show, Rob? I was going to say Richie then. Speaking of news and all the details, obviously we can't get into it until you introduce us to the
graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, aka the news.
The news, and of course, the news is brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic members of the channel who support us that extra little bit further, push us to make better content, and be able to reinvest a little bit as it does. And we got a couple of super chats on this week's live stream. We always have the wonderful members who drop in there as well. So thank you very much. Do consider supporting us that little bit more. Me and Richie are looking at reinvesting for the next season of The Last of Us as well. So we've got something lined up for that. Keep your eyes peeled. And of course, Richie couldn't possibly redecorate his girlfriend's house without that funding. Not that it pays directly, but yeah, that's what he's away celebrating. Right, Rob, couple of stories, couple of big ones to get into. Kicking things off, let's look at Resident Evil 9. Now, it's a good thing you're on the show because you're probably the biggest Resident Evil fan between the three of us. This is a supposed leak, so take it with a pinch of salt. However, we are getting to a point now where we haven't had a Resident Evil game in a long, long time. And I say a long, long time, it's actually not been that long, but the cadence in which they've dropped them since 2 Remake has been every year. And in some cases, I think we got 2 at one point. I think we got Resident Evil Village and then 3 or 4 remake within the same calendar year.
Yeah, 8 and 4 were really quick ones.
So it's been crazy, and obviously there's been rumours about remakes of some of the spin-offs as well. Code Veronica, Zero were also rumoured. I'm still personally waiting for them to remake 1, so I can actually start the franchise at the beginning, still having played 7 and 8 and then gone back to 2, and I'm all over the place. But basically, we're kind of expecting it, and Resident Evil 9 is kind of the big hit that's rumoured for the Game Awards. Makes sense, like putting all the ducks in a row. So we've got some Resident Evil 9 leaks. I just want to break down a little bit of the way the direction's going. Personally, regardless of these leaks, I think this is like the convergence point for the series, where first person, which we had in Biohazard and Village, and then the remakes are catching up with them now. So we will possibly have... We had 5. Am I going crazy? 5 hasn't happened yet, has it?
5 remake hasn't happened.
5 hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting like a convergence point. I think we will get 5, but then the next full entry 9, like 5 and 9, like they've literally caught up to their own heels now. So
yeah, like 6 and 7, the mechanics are largely the same as to not need it like a remake, I think.
Yeah. So some of the leaks,
again,
take it with a pinch, but it does look like we'll be returning to third person. It looks like we're also going to be returning to playable characters as, again, spoilers, I guess, for anyone who's wary of it. It's going to be in the trailer, so don't worry too much. Jill Valentine looks like she's going to be playable. Leon Kennedy also looks like is going to be playable. And then potentially Barry Burton, don't know who that is, and Chris Redfield as well. But the leakers have also said that it's going to be typical Resident Evil style. There's going to be an island, there's going to be an abandoned hospital, caves, dark forests, abandoned factories, laboratories, and a temple, apparently. So like your whole Resident Evil location gamut is covered in that one. Enemies are said to include evolved zombies, similar to Resident Evil 4's. Stalker enemies that like follow you around, so similar to like Mr. X or Nemesis. I think there's going to be like one big person who follows you, which I think that's kind of the Resident Evil, like one of the unique horror tropes that they have. And apparently a goat man. That's
okay, like the culty kind of
that Jill's going to have to deal with, and then the main villain is said to be someone called Mr. Simon. I don't know what that is.
They don't give these people like first names, do they?
No, they don't like that. It's just a Mister. You refer to them by the title.
Hello, Mr. Nemesis.
You are Mr. Nemesis. So obviously, bear in mind potential leaks, but I think from the sources that I've gathered, that they're like really good Resident Evil sources for like covering all the news and such. And yeah, I guess I'll throw it over to you, Rob, as our big Resident Evil aficionado. Is that what would you be happy returning to those playable characters in third person, or were you hoping the franchise will maybe push on beyond? Now Village's story wrapped up with I can't remember his name, Ethan Winters, that was the guy, wasn't it? We never saw him. We saw his hands get cut off and severed.
Yeah,
poor bloke went through a lot with those hands. But yeah, now that's kind of ended. What are you expecting to see? Does this tickle your fancy, or is this?
Oh yeah, like as you say, I think this is definitely the convergence point, and I guess it comes down to how well Capcom handle that kind of merging. Because like as much as they've been on a tear recently with like the Resident Evil games, I don't think you can argue that in the past they've handled them the best way. There've been like almost as many misses as hits. So I think it comes down to like how they introduce I guess like the two sets of characters. So you have Chris Redfield as like the bridge between the two worlds almost. I don't think Jill's been.
Jill was 3, right?
Yeah, so she hasn't been like, I don't want to say irrelevant, but she hasn't been kind of a major player in the games for a long time now. So I'll be interested in how they bring her back. And obviously Leon's a fan favorite, so that ticks my boxes there. Barry is a first game character, which is why you won't know much about him if you haven't played the first one. So I think I would prefer them to continue the, I guess, mechanics of 4 and keep a third person, because I liked number 7 what they did with first person, but I found number 8 getting a bit too actiony and falling back into like old mistakes.
Especially
maybe.
the kind of final third really doubled down. Like, I think when you get to the factory area, it didn't feel like a stealth horror game at all.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm kind of happy to take a step back from that. I think from a story perspective, that's going to be where they either like hit the mark really well or they just fall on the face. So it's centered around like Evelyn and I don't know what they're called. Like her kind of faction.
Well,
it's completely lost.
There's some notes to kind of add context for the story then that I found from the same leaker, and it's set 4 years after Resident Evil Village. It looks like it's going to have Jill and Leon investigating the island, which was where Evelyn's based.
Yeah,
you can fill in the gaps that I don't have a clue. And the company is making clones using the goopy stuff from 7, the Mega My Seat, I think it was called.
Yeah, Mega My, that's the one.
That was the word, yeah. Which I think is good, because I think those goop monsters, for lack of a better name, they were the scariest thing about 7. That like dropping them down from the ceiling and coming through grates and coming up out the floor was like made me jump so many times. They do mention Rosemary Winters, Rose, which is the daughter from 7, and when you said about the convergence point, the DLC, which was about Rose, was third person for Village. So you had that, like, they did shift back over to third person for the DLC. And we know Rose's blood could potentially be used to make a cure. So I think it's going to, like, just putting the pieces together, I'm like, right, you've got our 2 protagonists back from previous games. We're researching the Mega My Seat from 7 and 8. And then the savior, or I guess we're going to be looking for Rose to save her because she's probably gone missing, no doubt. That's how the game's going to start.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to have your typical horror tropes like sprinkled in at all these different locations, like a forest, caves, hospital, temple. It all kind of fits together. Like, it sounds like a Resident Evil story. So
yeah. Like I think the only question mark on how they handle is obviously like Evelyn and Ethan and Maya are sort of kind of linked together as like a 2 sides of a fight.
All right.
If they can, I wouldn't want to see them kind of drop completely in favor of Leon and Jill. So I guess like just finding like a neat way to have them part of like like the surrounding story, I think would be my only kind of concern to get right, because like obviously like the nowhere near as popular as I guess the mainline franchise kind of characters, like in Leon's and Chris's, but I think they still play a part and they still have their own little followings and they're received generally well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to see them kind of completely abandoned from a not even mentioned perspective.
Are you surprised they're not going ahead with like a new, like now Ethan's wrapped up his story? Are you surprised they've gone back to the well with the old characters and not just like made a new protagonist? Or is the fan love for these old characters just so diehard that we can't get away from them?
I feel like it's a decision made in a boardroom where it's like, then no, let's just bring them back. We know people like these guys, and like that's it's always risky introducing a new character, right?
So the only one I've not, again, Claire is one, right? Claire Redfield.
Yeah, so Claire was playable in 2, and
like that's when you do the 2. You can do the whole story, can you, with either. So she's not mentioned anywhere in this. She's not dead, right? Spoilers. She's kicking.
Really had to follow all like the offshoots, but I don't think she is. I think she's just chilling somewhere.
Just chilling, because this is what they do, don't they? They kind of just bring some in, bring others. Who's the guy? is it in 3? He's part of Stars. He's introduced. He's got like the more like a pineapple hair is the best I can describe.
Oh
him
yeah,
as.
yeah.
There's like a couple of others, isn't
I
there?
don't think we've seen him again.
Right.
But again, like when it comes to, like Claire, she was just like not Leon, sorry, Chris's sister, who just happened to get caught up
Oh
in it.
yeah, she does. Yeah, because I have played a few hours of 2. Yeah, she's not even like tactical or anything. She just
No,
happens
so
to
like
be there.
once like she got out number 2, like she just wants to go home and just do
That's
whatever she
fair.
was doing
That's
before.
fair.
She's like, if she can get dragged back in the story, she's like, Chris, you do realize I am not trained to do this.
He's
right?
a gun. He's a gun. It's like,
It's like, stop it.
okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. That yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I'm excited. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw. Obviously now Halloween's gone. It makes sense that they do a reveal, and I think the remakes have had a cadence of coming out in about like the springtime, if I remember, like March, April. I could see the Resident Evil 9 being lined up for like next spooky season. So tease it at the start of the year, maybe drop something around summertime E3 era for like the big gameplay reveal or something, and then release it next October. I think seems to be like a perfect cadence for this. And probably a 5 remake or a 1 remake or a Code Veronica remake at some point, maybe before then, just to kind of keep people's appetites whetted. But yeah, Rob, I'm just waiting for that 1, so I can go like in my own OCD head. I can go right. I'll start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way through.
I mean, once you unlock 1, you unlock about like just countless hours of gaming you can do, like with all like the sequels and stuff.
And I think that's what's getting to me is just like I looked at one, not remake, the GameCube remake they had, or HD or something, whatever it was called, back in 2008-ish, 9-ish. I think because I've been playing Indiana Jones and stuff, like it's not like graphics are holding me off. It's just I'm like, sod's law. As soon as I finish it, they're going to announce the full like gorgeous looking remake. So it's like, just hold off. Be patient. There's plenty of other stuff to play in the meantime. But speaking of other things in the meantime to play, Rob, let's move over to the second story of the week, which is Nintendo Switch news. Now it's getting to a breaking point now. If the Nintendo Switch reveal was a dam, it would be full of so many holes now. It would be ready to burst because Nintendo, the Switch is like nearly 8 years old now. They're running out of steam with game entries, I feel, and franchises. They've done all the ports from the Wii U they possibly could do. They've done all the DS upgrades like Luigi's Mansion 2 that they can do. And I think it's been so long now since Odyssey, and we've had the Zelda sequel, Smash Bros. And Mario Kart are now 8 years old nearly at this point as well. It's just like we're just waiting now. Like the tech is becoming so
there's
exhausted.
nowhere to go, right? It's like the tech's being pushed to its limit, like the catalog's being pushed to its limit, and
in a great way, because it's still selling gangbusters. And Nintendo, I think the reason it's taking so long is because Nintendo are like, right, they're only just starting to see sales trickle down a little bit. And we know they've always been working on it in the background, but I genuinely feel like if it wasn't doing so well, we probably would have seen this console last year or maybe even this year. But I think because it keeps selling well, why rock the boat, right? Just sit on it.
Yeah.
Sit on it and wait. But we're starting to see it now. We saw it with last year's Pokemon entry. Richie did say Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was a little bit chuggy at times. The reviews, which we'll get into for Mario and Luigi Brothership, which just came out this week, that's apparently got loads of problems. Like I was listening to an IGN review, and he was saying there's parts of the game which genuinely freeze for like a couple of seconds at a time. And it's like that you can't get a pass for that, like back to back to back. But the reason we bring the news up is not rumors or leaks. Nintendo officially, Nintendo's corporate account replied to a message confirming that the Switch predecessor will be backwards compatible with the Switch library. It's also going to include Switch Online, which is obviously the online suite, the subscription where you get games and stuff, and the retro games included in that. So reading directly from Shintaro Furukawa, at today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. So they're still not giving it a name, they're just saying the successor, and it will be available on the successor to the Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to the Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. So it's such a Japanese announcement where
it's very like kind of man in a suit who's worked like 50 hours and it's only Tuesday, and it's like
very, very professional. And then in addition to be able to play Nintendo Switch software they currently own, consumers will be able to choose their next purchase from a broad selection of titles for Nintendo Switch. So that initially off the bat is like fantastic. I know Richie said like that's one of those decisions that they couldn't mess up on. Like, we're in such a digital modern world now, you could not just disregard an entire library where there's 130 million units out there now. That's a big library to just expect people to abandon and move. And we know, and Phil Spencer came out and admitted, like, that's why Xbox lost the generation. They lost the digital generation where people moved their libraries over to diskless or console, cartridgeless. And I think Nintendo would be fools to do the same thing again. I'd imagine a lot of Switch owners out there just have all the stuff digital.
Yeah, I'd agree on it. And I think, especially when we move generations now, like I think the behaviour's changed a bit on the last few, where it's like not everyone just like piles over at the same time now. Everyone kind of like, crawls over at different speeds, and that's why you have like those like generational kind of games and stuff like that. So to just kind of have a hard stop in it, this is what we're doing now. I think it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, and it's how do you keep the uptake? And it's basically everyone who either wants a new one or they're thinking of getting a Switch. Is you want them to be able to buy the new one and go, well, if I have 50 games in my old library, I get to keep that, and they run better, they play better. That's the perfect transition. That's why everyone's seamlessly moved. Like, I had no qualms about getting rid of my PS4 this time around because there was no, like I said, I didn't lose anything. All my PS4 discs still run, all my games still work, and if anything, they load quicker, they look better. And we're seeing that now with the PlayStation 5 Pro that came out this week as well. Is if you just want everything better, it's there. It's there for you. Yeah. And the only thing I want to, I guess, drill into is reading between the lines on this. It's great that they've said it's going to be backwards compatible. However, I know this isn't the official announcement. It was just a reply from the corporate account. There's a couple of things that they don't like. Something in the wording and the things they don't mention
this, actually,
is they don't mention cartridges in that description. Mm-hmm. They very much say compatibility with Nintendo Switch, and they say things like the software will be playable. So it doesn't say your games, your cartridges, or library. It says the Switch software will be playable on the successor. That kind of leaves wiggle room for me to think like, oh, if you own these games, they'll be playable, but that doesn't mean the ones you physically have will be playable. So, like, for example, my couple of cartridges I've got down here, if I have them digitally, software, that's fine. I just log into my Switch Online account and there's the games I've all purchased on the new tech. But do you think Nintendo, do you think this is very choice wording, or I don't know. I just think there's that. Will Nintendo do a Nintendo decision where it's like, yeah, it's all there, but only if you bought them digitally?
It's a difficulty, isn't it? Because you never know if it's like I don't know, like what you gain or what you lose from like a language translation as
true,
well.
Very true.
And then also, like, the thing I picked up on was the second half of the quote, which was consumers will be able to choose their next purchase from a broad selection of titles. Like, broad selection, like, what's a broad selection? Like, that can be, like, 5 titles. It could be 500, right? Like, I don't want to pull at threads because it might just be, like, hyper-analyzing and, picking up on things that aren't there, or maybe some things that are, which you haven't noticed, but I'm not, like, kind of taking it as a given that you're getting, like, full kind of compatibility yet until that's like the exact words they use. I'm kind of holding off.
Yeah, that'd be like the home run, wouldn't it? They reveal the big Switch 2, just whatever it ends up being called, and then like somewhere in that reveal presentation it says, "Oh, and good," and then that like disconnected voiceover guy who comes on and goes, "Oh, and guess what? Your games are now also available, fully backwards compatible from your Switch library." Just put that. It shows you like an animation of the cartridge going in from an old Switch game or something, like Mario Kart 8 or something, and it's like, hey, the Switch spins round, it boots up, and it's like the game's fine. Everyone can chill and relax and go, great.
Yeah.
But on the other side, they could just not do that, and then a blog post comes out after the reveal, and it says like, just FYI, caveat, only select games, as you were alluring to, the top 10. Maybe that's it.
Yeah,
and you have to own them digitally, and it's like, oh dear.
I guess this is the thing for me. So, like, how do you think it's going to handle the physical media side of the Switch 2?
That's it with cartridges, isn't it? Because like they are the only ones who've stuck with cartridges, and Nintendo, unlike the other two, their cartridge attach rate is still about 50%. So whereas like Xbox and PlayStation are pivoting massively to like 80% and beyond digital only, which makes sense. Like that's the way the world's going. I think Nintendo just has this. it's so different that 50% attach rate on physical still. And I'm the same. I don't know if it is the cartridges that people just prefer them, or they're maybe longer lasting, or whatever the reason behind it is. I don't think Nintendo would be naive enough to leave that behind, like their audience who are relying on physical. And I don't really know how much would it really cost to implement like a slot on the side, because like we've seen it as we've grown up over the years, like how much media back in the day had like 7-8 different slots for various memory cards. Like my PS3, the original fat one, I think that has like 3 slots on the front, and I don't even know what half the slots are for.
Yeah, because you have like the SD, the micro SD,
There's the Sony Pro Duo, and then there's a slot that says CF. I don't even know what CF.
I think CF was like a camera like mini card at one point.
But like at some point, the Sony development team said, "Oh, we need this in. Like let's pay to get the parts and add it into the ridiculously large system that it was." And obviously, remember the PS3 could connect to a printer if you wanted to. That's how crazy over the top they designed that thing.
I love that time period when stuff like that was just normal.
Yeah. And you had your several adapters for different memory cards. Like it was like a 3-stack Lego block with like just plugged in to plugged in. But with Switch, I don't really know enough about the tech to think like, does it cost really that much to just have a little cartridge slot on the side of the new one?
Or maybe it's like 2, like a digital only, and
and then even if they went ahead with the Switch 2, like would Switch 2 cartridges just be the same? Like because a cartridge is like like an SD card. You can get a 250 gig SD card or a 2 gig SD card, and it's the same size. So physically, there's not really much that needs to do. So I would believe the Switch 2 could just have a cartridge slot that would play Switch 2 games and the old cartridges as well. I feel like that would be
I wouldn't assume they need to get bigger or change or anything.
You're not going to go back to like NES, massive block cartridges. Like, you want some nostalgia? Your Switch 2's got this massive block sticking out the back of it. It plays NES titles and N64 cartridges as well.
But the actual like NES cartridge is bigger than the Switch.
Yeah, it might possibly be. But it is at that breaking point where I think they've confirmed it's going to be announced before the end of the financial year, which puts us in March 2025. So my guess would be reveal at next they revealed the first Switch in and around I think February, March, and it was like due to come out in the late April. So it's like the turnaround time wasn't crazy for the original one, but it's so long ago. It's like nearly a decade. It's hard to even remember what launch was like now.
Yeah.
But now they've got that resounding success of how well the Switch has done behind it. I think the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being, is like if they keep the library and just, I think Richie always describes it as, I just want my Switch, what I've got now, just better screen, better battery, faster performance, and my library, and he'll be content and happy. And I think I'll be exactly the same as that. Don't rock the boat. Don't add motion controls where it doesn't need it. Don't add a second screen when it doesn't need it, Nintendo.
But that's the thing though, like with Nintendo, they could do something mad like that, and it's an even bigger success because it's Nintendo. Like,
that is the risk. Is the risk, isn't it? Is they could just totally pivot and go, oh, it's circular. The whole console's a circle, and you can play with your friends all in a circle, holding different parts of the console. It's like, wow.
It's like a circle, and now it's also attached to a hot air balloon, which just floats around your living room.
Yeah, I mean, you missed the episode a couple of weeks ago, but did you see Nintendo launched an alarm clock called Alarmo?
Yeah.
Why? And last week,
because it can.
And last week was Nintendo Music, the music streaming app from Nintendo. Like, not Spotify, that would be too simple. It's like, no, we've made our own bespoke app for soundtracks for Nintendo games.
It must be a tax thing. It must have because they have like an ungodly amount of cash just sat in a bank, and maybe they have to they can get R&D kind of relief on it or something.
Yeah. It might be like Sony is they have to keep making Spider-Man movies regardless of the quality just to keep the Spider-Man license. So you will see another Venom, a Madam Web, a Morbius. What's the one that comes out next month? It's Aaron Taylor Johnson. Kraven the Hunter movie comes out next month.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Because nobody cares, right?
Just because. But either way, Nintendo Switch will be imminent. They might go Game Awards. They might go later. Who knows? But it's nice to see that there's some element of backwards compatibility playing into it. And hopefully it will be the backwards compatibility everybody wants. But good to know. Moving on, quick reviews for Mario and Luigi Brothership. As I said, just released this past week on the 7th of November. Its Metacritic score has got it at 79. so it's doing quite well. As I said, albeit performance, it doesn't run that great. Seemingly, Nintendo, as with most of their reviews, it kind of gets overlooked because it's a Switch game. It's a family-friendly game. It gets a pass, I think. I think a lot of Nintendo titles get a pass, whether maybe if it was on Xbox or PlayStation, they would not get that.
Oh no, if it was one of the main consoles, they get savaged for a tiny frame rate drop. But
yeah, I mean, I've seen it recently with a lot of new titles. It's they really go to town on it, but seemingly a lot of these reviews, it isn't that problematic. So as I said, it's sitting with a 79 on Metacritic from the general critic reviews. It's sitting with a user score of 8.4, so it's actually being reviewed a lot better. Looking at IGN, they described it as, despite a few, they give it an 8.5. Despite a few fumbles, Mario and Luigi Brothership manages to deliver a comeback worthy of any franchise. The game strikes a balance between fun and a challenge, and it's a great duo job to control Mario and Luigi at the same time, to progress through all obstacles and face enemies in exciting combat. Another one from Giga, they give an 8 out of 10. They say, Brothership captures Nintendo's signature charm with vibrant graphics and a feel-good atmosphere. While it doesn't revolutionise the RPG genre, it delivers a well-paced adventure blending combat skills, puzzles, and exploration in an enjoyable experience lasting 35 to 40 hours. Which is the one criticism I've seen in the IGN video review, was that it said the game felt like it was coming to an end, and then there was a further 15 hours of grind on the back of it, because it is an RPG, so it's got that mechanic where I think they can drag it out if they want to, and it's always
it's loads more content.
It's that return on value for money, isn't it? It's if it's 45 hours as opposed to 35, that's better bang for my buck almost.
Yeah, but you don't think of the quality of those past those extra 15 hours.
Absolutely. And I think this isn't a franchise for you or me. I think we had 1,000 Year Door and Mario and Paper Mario came out in the last 2 years. So this is the newest entry in that Mario RPG series, and it's seemingly reviewed well, but it's definitely one that's not for me.
Yeah,
and
not for me.
Same for you.
I might buy a Switch 2 if it lands.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of other Mario games I would rather play, but it's this is what I'm talking about. The franchise is kind of coming to an end of right. So you've had your 3 RPGs, you've had all your remakes of Paper and 1,000 Year Door. You've got your Zelda remakes, you've got your new Zelda entry, you've got all your Mario's. The Mario Odyssey team haven't put anything out since the Switch launched with Mario Odyssey. It's they've been grafting away behind the scenes on seemingly a new 3D Mario. For how long now? 7 and a bit years, probably, after post-launch content. So
yeah, they've got to be something.
They've got to be cooking something for the launch of the new one. Same with the Mario Kart team. So again, Nintendo have stuff in the tank, I think, ready to go. But we'll just have to wait and find out. Speaking of having things in the tank, we got another surprise stealth drop this week, and this is one probably closer to you and me, Rob. Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding got a stealth drop on Xbox consoles and Amazon Luna, a very shocking surprise drop this past week. It was actually very timely because it was the 5th anniversary of the PS4 exclusivity release. So literally on the stroke of midnight, after the 5 years ended, it dropped, and Konami and Kojima started started tweeting out about the new game coming to new platforms. It was available on discount on the Xbox Store. Not too sure what it was on Amazon Luna, but again, exclusivity, clearly not. I've also heard rumours this week that the rights are fully in Kojima's hands now, so PlayStation doesn't have any say over it necessarily. And of course, the sequel rumoured to be out now. I think they might have put a 2025 on it. Death Stranding 2
2025 on it.
On the Beach, which is the most random subtitle for a game ever. Nice to see on other platforms, Death Stranding.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel maybe it got accidentally included on Amazon Luna, just as someone had a document that they had to amend and they didn't, and it's we'll just give them it anyway because it's so inconsequential.
Yeah, you pasted the full list over. It wasn't supposed to be there.
It's it doesn't matter, just give it.
But I mean, again, great. Luna aside, it's great for them. It's nice to see big games, AAA games coming to it, albeit 5 years later. It was under PlayStation exclusive. It's also coming to Xbox as well. And again, we know Kojima now, he's kind of free of the shackles of Konami. He's been doing this. He's working on a game with Xbox. He's got another horror game on the go. He's got a VR game on the go. I think he's using the cloud, I think, for the Xbox title. So he's got a lot of stuff in the works alongside Death Stranding 2. My guess is the sequel is going to follow the same suite. It'll be PlayStation exclusive and PC for the first couple of years. Then we'll see it jump over, because that's obviously how a lot of these companies make their money. They make an exclusive deal. But yeah, it's nice to see. Death Stranding's one of those that is all the love I have for Metal Gear Solid. I think leading up to it, I think similar to Richie, where we were maybe just a bit exhausted on trailers for it, and it got dragged out leading up to it. It was so long of like cutscenes, and then when it came out, it was very not controversial, but polarizing, I would say, in terms of some people absolutely adored it, other people were bored the shit out of it. And I think
I still haven't played this game.
I'm scared to check it out in case I look at it and go, oh, it's not landed for me, because I probably want to love it.
Yeah, same here. And I'm like, it's such a big commitment to make to like a game if I just get nothing out of it. Whereas like I know I'll get something out of something else in the back catalogue. So yeah, I still need to check it out. And
I might get that itch leading up to the sequel. I think once maybe that's on the horizon and you've got like 3 months until Death Stranding 2 comes out, that's probably the sweet spot to go, okay, now is the time. It's the director's cut that's out everywhere as well, so it is the final finished version of his vision as he gets. But yeah, it's nice to see. I'm still not disappointed in a way, but we didn't get Metal Gear Solid Delta this year, which seemingly, I mean, there is still time, but that was the big one for this back end of the year. That seemingly is getting pushed now to 2025.
This is really sad to me because it's like in my head, like I think I just didn't keep up to the news, and like I had it committed to like, it's coming out 2024.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got my 2 and a bit weeks off in Christmas. I'm just gonna like hammer it.
Yeah, like that. I have it pre-ordered, and the pre-order says like December 2024. Like still, it's like, it's not coming out though. Interesting side note though, they did a video interview drop this week with David Hayter and 2 of the supporting voice cast. It was the voice of Big Boss and the voice of Ava, revealed for the first time to be the same lady who voiced the Little Mermaid in 1994, 3, 2, whatever it is, Disney's Little Mermaid. And during the interview, she says that back in the day, she did the Little Mermaid voice acting, and because of the squeaky clean persona that Disney obviously wanted to give off, when she did Ava's voice, because obviously Metal Gear Solid and Ava's character in particular is maybe not so Disney PG.
Yeah, quite sexualized.
she went under a fake name. So they said like the director spoke to her and they picked it was a combination of her cat's name and I think her mother's maiden name or something, and that's how they got the fake name who played Ava. So no one's knew for like 20 plus years. And then, in this interview, she finally revealed it. So it's like, the Little Mermaid is in fact Ava from Metal Gear Solid 3.
Wow, that's a hook in.
That is indeed.
Those connections are so like. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I'd like give myself that same logical fake name, like my cat's name and then my mother's maiden name. It would be Cyril. Like, that sounds just like a Harry Potter character. It's like. Cyril who works at like the Ministry of Magic or something, like 2 days a week.
It would. I think that would catch a few people off guard, certainly. But it was Suzette Minette or Minet or something. So I think they took Monet and then tweaked it to Minette, and then Suzette from the cat. So who knows? She also did the voice of Barbie in Toy Story. Just as a nice little side note for her voice acting career. So she's been around for some time. It was interesting because in the interview, David Hayter's like I've known you for years, but we've had to keep this a secret. And she says like she was at Comic-Con or at a Comic-Con convention, and she said someone came up to her in the last like couple of years or stuff and gave her a Ava like figurine to sign, and she was like, "That's not who. Why are you giving me this?" And the person was like, "I know," and she was like, "Keep it quiet, then keep it." And it's like that's crazy that like no one.
She was like, "Oh." What's she like? It's like, are you a lawyer? Are you trying to serve me right now for like a contract breach?
There's something. Do you work for Konami?
It's like who sent you?
There's like 3 Japanese people in like very like business suits who are there like Yakuza style. It's been 20 years. I've kept it a secret. I promise to drag her out the room. She's gone.
It's like not long enough. It's like
done. But I'm really looking forward to Delta. I think it's been so long since I played Metal Gear, but just the polish on it, and I think the time is right. And I actually appreciate in a way they've chosen to do 3 first in like a chronological way. So I think it'll serve for newer audiences and old alike. So
I guess the downside to that is we'll have to wait the longest for the Guns of the Patriots remake, which is one I really want because that's like blocked on PS3 now.
Yeah, well, we've got the collection, which they're working on,
Oh,
Collection
of course,
2,
yeah,
which
yeah.
means we should be getting them, and hopefully I think we're gonna see Peace Walker move over from the PSP as well, which is
Okay.
one of my favourites. So yeah, I think that'll be like the filler gap in between. But yeah, I think realistically, you're probably talking 10 years till we see the full remake of Guns of the Patriots. But not too long, hopefully. Not too long for the Delta version. Speaking of waiting not too long, Warner Brothers have had some more investment calls and stuff this week, and we got Hogwarts Legacy news in and amongst some other things. So there is a Hogwarts Legacy sequel in the works, no surprise there. It's apparently going to tie in with a Harry Potter HBO series, which leaves me feeling a little bit okay-ish. Why would you want to do that necessarily? Because the great thing with Hogwarts Legacy is because it took place so long before all the events of Harry Potter, it didn't really have to be connected at all. And I think the school and the surrounding village and stuff, that's what made that game sing, because you got to explore the location without the attachment of laws. Fucking Ron gonna come out from around the corner.
He's like a Malfoy cousin's drop or something like that.
Like obviously we played it a lot. I know your girlfriend's a huge fan of it as well. And with the HBO series kind of like trying to keep that franchise alive well beyond Daniel Radcliffe and folks, and well beyond the turmoil that the author of the books is seemingly never ending going on. I think this franchise will certainly outlive her and everyone else. She'll probably sell the rights at some point, right? She'll get fed up with it all and go, you know what, I'll take 1.8 billion from Universal to just take this off my hands, or whatever it looks like. But yeah, reading from the investors report then, they basically came out and said that the gaming division of WB Games has substantially underperformed in its potential, and that's with the failures of Multiverses, Suicide Squad, Killer Justice League, costing them 300 million this year alone. Thankfully, they were saved by Hogwarts Legacy grossing over $1 billion and being top seller last year. It's still up there in the charts this year as well. Came out this year. Sorry, scratch that. But it's still up there in like the weekly game charts in like 7th or 8th, underneath like Call of Duty, FIFA. So it's up there. It's doing phenomenally well. And I mean, I'm not surprised there's going to be a sequel. Anything in particular, Rob, that you'd like to see from a sequel? Because the problem now they've got is, the longer it goes on, the closer you do get to the events of the movies and the books. Right. And like, I think just having the castle again won't be enough. Like, it needs more.
So I think they might, like, obviously I think they need to update like the mechanics of the game a little bit more, and like kind of just get like the combat depth a bit better and stuff like that. So like that all goes without saying. In terms of like setting, and I know it's called Hogwarts Legacy, but I wouldn't be opposed to it being set in like the Ministry of Magic, and you're like you're like an aura or something, a bit older, like you're not a student, like you can be like a young aura, but you can purely have like, okay, how you've got like an investigation or whatever, and like you can like level up your character in like, I don't know, like investigation and like combat skills or like a bunch of other things. I think it'll be a risk to go away from the school, and I think it would probably appeal to a slightly different audience. But for me, that I would find that very, very interesting, because like they did the school so well.
Yeah, they did
in the first one. I'm wondering how it wouldn't just come across as a DLC content. Right. That would be my main concern. So I wouldn't be opposed to them going like wider in the universe.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got plenty of locations. I'm like, my go-to is like Gringotts. Like, I know like the game touched on it briefly in the opening to Hogwarts Legacy, but I'm talking like full on, let me explore, walk around. And I think the Ministry of Magic is like, I know you only see bits in the movies, but you would imagine that is a functioning like government office where there should be so many like secrets to explore, and like essentially it could just be the school all over again, but on a more adult scale, as you were saying. Like, there could be vaults that hide all these secrets. There could be dark wizards. Azkaban?
Yeah.
Like whether that's a segment of the game, but that's a whole building that is going to have secrets in. I don't know, maybe like some of the worst witches and wizards like break out, like some kind of breakout. Like I said, you're investigating that perhaps as like a...
Yeah, I think something like that, like almost like a Batman Arkham Asylum style. That'd be cool. But I think like obviously like the school has its appeal, and like we have to like take account like a younger audience who would want to play that, which I get. But I don't know what they'd be able to do in the school where you're just like another Mary Sue student who can do everything really well.
More lessons.
Yeah, it's difficult to know where to go with that.
Yeah. Especially because you've got like most games and most sequels always struggle with that. Like you've got your skill tree now, so like do you just reset and it's like, oh, now I'm another student who doesn't know how to cast the basic
Yeah,
combat spells. I have to go through all of that rigmarole again before even getting to now I can go fight goblins and cave trolls
yeah.
and whatever it may be. So yeah, I think there's good scope for that, and no surprise they're working on it. It's kind of baffling in a way because like Portkey Games, this was like their first big console entry, and they smashed it out of the park so well. Like
Insanely
that
so.
team must be loaded now of like just like
You must think like all the other kind of little teams in WB like under the boot for like
mhm.
just the failures they've done, and it's just like Portkey just like smugly sat there in the big team meetings. It's
And
like
that's the big irony, right? That you had someone in the form of like Rocksteady who had done this kind of game, a single player, story driven narrative based on a successful IP and a popular IP in Batman,
hmm.
and then they pivoted and went all Suicide Squad on themselves. Like they literally
Yeah.
torched themselves, and WB Montreal got screwed over by Gotham Knights as well, and we had to
Mm,
wait 8-9 years, and to this point where like the biggest news you get is the Batman Arkham games are now able to buy individually on Switch this week. So it's like people are still buying the Arkham games. Arkham VR Shadows really well touted on. It's the best VR game on the meta from what I've heard.
mhm.
That came out a couple of weeks back. It's like so it's there, and going back to the insider gaming report of the business meeting, he goes on to say, I think we're through some of the worst and it hasn't been pretty on the gaming business, referring to Suicide Squad and Multiverse and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but we have 4 games that are really powerful and have really good consistency that we love them. We're going to focus on the 4 primarily, so we're going to move away from trying to launch 10, 12, 15, 20 different games, and I think we have a real chance to focus on our gaming business to make it steadier. He then added the 4 strong and profitable franchises with loyal global fans are Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, in particular Batman. We're focusing on development efforts of those core franchises with proven studios to improve our success ratio. So this is the WB, like I think it's someone Zaslav, and he's always been criticised in the past for just talking tongue in cheek, and he doesn't like really understand the games industry. He's just a corporate dude.
Yeah, yeah.
But that there's a few things that have me curious about this one. Hogwarts Legacy we've just mentioned. Batman makes sense. Like for me, just give Rocksteady Batman Beyond and just make a little mini version of a reboot, but tell
Yeah.
Batman Beyond story. Kevin Conroy, R.I.P., is no longer with us, so you're going to need to pivot and do a different story with an older voice actor potentially anyway. And like I grew up with the Batman Beyond cartoons, I thought they were brilliant, and I think
Hmm.
that aesthetic, keep it with Arkham, but update it a little bit. I think that's a no-brainer to get them to work on that. For me though, Game of Thrones, Rob, where's this franchise sitting in like the public mind's eye now? Obviously, House of Dragons still doing okay, even though
Hmm.
season 2 was a bit wishy-washy.
This
But
is the thing. I think Game of Thrones now is a bit of a um, it can go either way franchise because like just recently, me and I guess we decided to like rewatch Game of Thrones. But we haven't. We got to like the long night. We watched that episode and we couldn't watch anymore.
right,
Like it's just so bad. Those final few episodes. So that's kind of hit or miss. Like lots of fans are soured by that.
yeah. Obviously, the book's
House of
still not
Dragons.
out. Ironically, so it's like the fandom is still in stasis, waiting for like the true ending,
Yeah,
essentially.
and I think there's lots of like bad blood between like the fans and like of the franchise and like the product they're putting out now. And obviously
Yeah,
season 2 House of Dragon didn't go down the best. Like even George R. R. Martin kind of came out and bodied it a little bit.
yeah,
Which I don't particularly agree with because like that's another
yeah.
topic
I,
anyway.
I enjoyed it, but that last episode was like, "Where's the last episode?" I was like, "Oh, this is it." It was like, "Oh, okay, that was a choice." Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
right.
bad. It felt like it needed one more episode. Like,
Yeah,
but
exactly that. So I feel like obviously the way we know a lot of gaming fans are, if a game came out which was serviceable and okay, I think it would get savaged just because I think that's like where the fandom is at the moment.
mm,
So it would have to be a really like kind of good game
yeah, I mean, I don't
to
know
pay off.
what to expect. It's actually baffling that as a franchise and the success of the show, it hasn't been touched on more. Like we had Telltale's game, and we've had like a
Hmm.
suite of mobile games, but that's it. Which it's like, it's mad because Game of Thrones is ultimate video game fantasy. Swords, shields, different factions, murder, fighting, wars. Like that is prime for like RTS games, third person action games, multiplayer combat. Pick your
Honestly,
faction.
an RTS for...
Oh, yeah. Could you
insane.
imagine? Like an Age of Empires, but with the skin of Game of Thrones over it. Seems like, again, back to the Batman Beyond. It's such a simple... Like, how is there not someone at WB Games who goes, that's all you need. That's all I need to give you is a brief description of your new project. Go and make it happen. The wonderful teams at Rocksteady or WB, whatever. And you do wonder why it doesn't happen. But it's one of the things where if you had it, you obviously not. I don't think they're going to be able to afford like the likenesses for everyone. So
No, I think they'd have to go like...
They'd have to go the
different
books
time period on your story,
and do what they can. I mean, I'd be there for it if they did it and showed it off with enough polish of something that like looked close to The Witcher or something.
Yeah,
like open world Westeros. You could get that benefit of Hogwarts Legacy if I could walk around Winterfell or King's Landing in Hogwarts Legacy style, like quality. I'd love. Like, again, forget the game. I'm just happy to walk around like I was with the school.
Yeah, like the Hogwarts Legacy got a big pass on mechanics of the game because the aesthetics was so perfect. Like, perfect is probably the best word you can use for that, right? Yeah, I think if they got the right team behind it, I think it could be good. Or it could be another like disaster where they just like throw in something a bit crappy hack and slash game and then.
I mean, it's mad that we've not even got like I feel like it's ripe for like an MMO as well, like a World of Warcraft size and scope.
Yeah,
you've obviously got all the stuff over the sea as well, the Dothraki and all the other places that, again, it could be a huge world to explore. But maybe it's just too big to scope out for them, and they're maybe worried about.
Maybe also if the story's not complete, like there's probably details of like the Faceless Men and stuff like that which you'd want to explore in the game in full and kind of really kind of pick it apart. But if the source material is not there, then there's a risk you get it completely wrong, and then George R. R. Martin like kind of pisses on your game publicly on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one.
But then and I guess the other franchise, which weirdly enough they ignore. So Mortal Kombat standard, Mortal Kombat, they're just going to ping between that and probably Injustice. The team just back and forth. Obviously, the Shadow of War team, Monolith, they are working on a Wonder Woman game, which got no mention here. I guess it falls under DC, so we'll give them a pass for that. But then the big standout for me that WB are ignoring is The Lord of the Rings. Like, it's interesting that they would mention our 4-core IP Game of Thrones, but we're in almost like a Lord of the Rings renaissance at the moment with Rings of Power, love it or hate it, with War of the Rohirrim, with the Andy Serkis Hunt for Gollum movie, and another one that's in the works. It's odd that, as an IP that lends itself so well to gaming, we haven't had it. And I everything we've just mentioned about Game of Thrones, I would echo to Lord of the Rings. Give me could you imagine walking around Minas Tirith or something realized in like AAA quality video game aesthetics?
Yeah.
Going right to the top of that tower and looking out all the way over to Osgiliath and just like getting to explore that world. Like, the nearest we've realistically got is Shadow of War, and then I guess what was the other one we had years and years ago? The Lego one. Like, the Lego one is probably the closest we've got to a fully explorative Middle Earth. And that's
because
so
like the movie tie-in games were very, very much like
it was like small levels, wasn't it? It's like
right,
you're on top of a wall or you're stuck in a little green area. And again, I think as games, it's only a matter of time, right, before this is realised. That something might be now, it might be 10 years. Like, that's why I think Harry Potter fans flipped out so much for Hogwarts Legacy, because they've wanted this for 20 plus years now.
Yeah, and
they got it. And it's like, as games and budgets and stuff get bigger, it's like, well, what else can we make? And we've seen new IP, Concord, fails epically. So why not pivot and go, like, WB, you have The Lord of the Rings. Let me walk across the wall of Helm's Deep or walk through Fangorn Forest in AAA production quality, and I'll lap that stuff up. So
I think maybe what they're waiting for, like a movie or like something which is like kind of not kind of doesn't have to like hit like the peaks of like the movies or whatever, but it needs to be like needs to be consensus that it's good. Whereas because like Rings of Power is so divisive, like, and I'm gonna like we're big Lord of the Rings fans. Like, we have a specific WhatsApp group just to talk about Lord of the Rings. Like, that's
do,
like,
yeah.
and like the people in that group go across a pretty decent spectrum between me, who's just more kind of popular movies and like current media, like Jackson media, if you want to call it that, and then like yourself and like Luke, if he's listening, kind of really more into like talking himself. Like, there's a big like, there's a lot of like the spread of that group is really good.
Yeah.
And like we don't have a consensus on Rings of Power. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's
some
just
people hate
mixed,
it, some
isn't
people
it?
like it, and if there was just something where everyone said, "Okay, this is good, I like this," then I think that's the time when the game
Yeah.
can drop.
And then it's that risk of you forecasting the unknown, aren't you? You just,
Yeah,
it's, do we invest 200, 300 million in something that could not land? But then
and like,
I think they're doing that with, like, I mean, they were willing to do it with Suicide Squad.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but like hardcore Tolkien fans are so savage. Like,
It's sad that it was a fan base that was seemingly unified, and then now, like with most IP, the bigger the beast gets, you're pulling in, so, like you said, so much variety of people's interests and in scope for, like, some of them get the lore, some of them aren't interested in it. You've got your casual fans, and it's like it's almost getting the IP gets to a size where it just gets tore up by so many.
and you can't
so many
you
viewers.
can't appeal to everybody in that in this audience size that big, can you? It's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like lots of people hated like the Peter Jackson adaptation of Lord of the Rings because it wasn't 12 hours
Where
of
was
songs.
Tom Bombadil, Rob? Where was
Yeah.
he? And you got him in Rings of Power, and everyone hates the show anyway. So you can't win. You can't win. There was no internet back then. That's the true answer.
Probably, yeah.
There was
yeah.
You had the ringsofpower.net forum, and that was it. There was no one else beyond that. Moving away from the WB news, and speaking of like IP getting so big and getting torn apart, we move over to our next story, which is Dragon Age. And you've probably seen the discourse around Veilguard, and it's like it's getting reviewed well, but it's too woke, and we're not going to get into that here. The story this week is the Dragon Age boss says a legendary style Mass Effect remaster of the old games, which are the more revered seemingly, is unlikely because at BioWare there's probably less than 20 people who actually know how the old engines work. So this is a story more focused, I think, on video game preservation. So you've got Dragon Age, the original 2, Inquisition. They all run on an old proprietary engine before they pivoted and moved over to Frostbite 4 Inquisition. So basically everything prior to Inquisition, was it Origins? Was the original? Yeah, it was Origins, wasn't there?
Yeah.
As well. They're seemingly trapped on this old proprietary engine because there's literally no one left working there who knows how the engine functions. So
this kind of links back to what we were talking about with Warhammer, where it's like one of the key themes of that like thing was like the older the technology, the better it was, because and like they just like forgot how to to build it, and like when like you read that in like a lore setting, you're like, that's ridiculous, that would never happen, that's stupid. But then like, oh no, it's like it's actually happened right now in this game, type of thing.
Yeah, it's sad, but this is the true face of video games that I think a lot of people forget, that the human beings behind this, like, it's their job, it's their career, and guess what? They move on, they get promoted, they leave.
Yeah.
And people just see the name and go, oh, I love Naughty Dog. They made Crash Bandicoot. It's like, I guarantee you there's like maybe 5 people at Naughty Dog who had anything to do with Crash Bandicoot, because they're all in their 50s. They've all moved on, retired, started their own companies.
Yeah, it's people assume like it doesn't like change, or like it's just like, oh, Naughty Dog is Naughty Dog. But it's, as you say, it's made up of the people who work there. And fair enough, you need like people to keep the culture and keep the core kind of values and stuff like that. But it's impossible not to change. Like, you know, like retention rates at companies are a thing, and most people move on after like 2 or 3 years, right? That's
that's the average turnaround, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's no surprise. It is a shame in a way for video game preservation, because these games, and again, there's nothing to say that they can't like utilize the technology, and somehow in several years' time, AI and whatever and coding can help out figure out the engine without the need of someone having like hands-on experience with it. Because that's like, we've seen that happen with a lot of remaster remakes where they can take like a little bit and just let a machine crunch the numbers and pull the data they need to remake it, for better or for worse. This conversation obviously only comes up because of the controversy around Veilguard. They inevitably go, well, Veilguard's one thing, but what about your old games? Any chance of a remake, remaster? Yeah. That's how this kind of comes up. But yeah, it's one of them. What was your history with Dragon Age on this one.
Very, very light.
I know Richie had played and enjoyed Inquisition. I think he said himself he enjoyed the earlier ones more. I think he's still he's on the fence with Veilguard, but this is a franchise that I've never touched. So
no, I think I played Origins briefly because it was included on Game Pass when I first signed up for it, and I think there was something about the art style or the aesthetics which just I had a lot of kind of that style hack and slash games, so I think I only sunk 2 hours into it and then moved on to something else. So my exposure is not much better than yours, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to be exposed to the remakes because then it might most likely won't happen either way. One thing we are exposed to without trying to or not is Pokemon, because it's just part of pop culture now. It's everywhere, and I don't know if you've noticed, Rob, but there was a new game came out a couple of weeks back. Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket, or TCG as it's known, which is basically taking our childhood and all of those booster packs we used to buy, and it's digitized them, and it's doing phenomenally well. No surprise. Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket has sold over 30 million, or it's had 30 million downloads worldwide. 10 million in the first 48 hours, which means it's putting it on pace almost with Pokemon Go, which was a worldwide phenomenon back in the day. And I've seen even the YouTube channels I watch, that they do full 3-hour streams of unpacking digital cards now. So it's just their phone is just plugged in and they're streaming the phone, and all they're doing is sit there unlocking these Pokemon, putting them into virtual decks, and you can battle them. I've heard the battle system is very much like Marvel Snap, so it's got quite a vibrant interactive element. I've refrained from downloading this because I worry for my bank balance, because I'm guessing it's monetized to some degree. But just another success on Pokemon and Game Freak's hands. No surprise.
So yeah, I'm not touching this for the exact same reason you are, because the biggest trouble I ever got in as a kid was, do you remember in our school where we had to your parents would put money in an envelope for your dinner money.
Yeah. And then segment it down. Yeah.
Yeah, every week you'd take the envelope in.
Yeah.
At the peak of Pokemon trading card hype, I just stopped handing the money over to the teacher, and instead I would take I think it was £7.50 or something at the time, and I'd just go and buy 3 packs of Pokemon cards from the news agents.
Yeah.
And obviously it got to a point of 6 weeks where it's Mom got sent a letter saying you haven't paid any dinner money, and she was like,
I have.
Rob, where's it all gone? I was like, So I'm definitely staying away from this card game now. I have adult money, because it would just be a disaster.
Oh, you could see, couldn't you? Just you get so much of a collection, or there's a rare one that you're missing, and it's just that little pop up's going to show up and go oh, it's only. I mean, it was what the booster packs used to be £2.50, so they're probably $4.99 now by today's inflation rates. Just just $4.99, and because it's all digitally linked to your card, it's just one tap, it's done.
Yeah.
One tap, it's done, and it's 3 a.m, and you're 100 packs down. You're I still haven't got my shiny Blastoise or whatever.
And the next thing you know, you're on the front of the Daily Mail website, just with a sad face saying, "Oh, Nintendo cost me £5,000."
Yeah, and your school's still chasing you for lunch money. I have not a similar story, but I think I definitely did the same thing, where I think I raided my dad's chest of drawers and stuff for coins, and just stole pounds and 50p's and stuff. And I think he used to have parking money in his car. I probably raided the pouch under his mat in the car for any little bit of copper or silver I could get, just to buy a booster pack. It's so weird, but yeah, it made thieves out of us, Rob. It made thieves out of us.
I can see why kids just cane their parents' credit card now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm worried about that in the future. I need to safeguard it. But yeah, congratulations, Pokemon. No doubt it'll probably catch up. I think Niantic Pokemon Go took 19 days to hit 50 million. So this has hit 10 million in 48 hours, and it's now past 30 million. So again, it's Pokemon, isn't it?
Nice,
it does what it does. Moving on to some, I guess, sadder news in the video game world, as we round up kind of the quick stories at the end of this show. SEGA Classics. SEGA announced this week as part of a blog that they're going to delist some of their older titles from multiple storefronts. 60 classic games have been delisted. I won't go through them all, but it's big ones from Alex the Kid, Altered Beast, all the way through to Crazy Taxi, Streets of Rage and stuff on multiple platforms. Steam's the biggest one, because naturally that has the most. they're getting delisted, and I think as we narrow down to consoles, the Sega Genesis Classics Collection, which was the actual full game that came out, where you had a little virtual living room and you put the cartridges in and you got to play like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff through that. They're all being delisted, and Sega didn't really give a reason why. They just said to start, I think it's like December 6th, the official date. They're just going to pull them away, and I don't know why. Like, all I can think is they're planning to rebundle them and relaunch them again to make more money, like they've done with Sonic 1,000 times.
Yeah, I think that'll be my thing. Like, obviously, like, you lose some good titles, like kind of Streets of Rage and Golden Axe and like those types of games. So that's a bit of a shame. But I can't see them just not being around for forever.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason, right? Isn't there for it? It can't be licensing because Sega own them. This isn't like a third-party publisher going like, "Oh, we had a 10-year lease on Sega games." It's like, no, this is Sega pulling Sega games from storefronts that Sega have every right to do. But again, back to video game preservation. Like, these are some of the oldest titles. They've been preserved in a classics collection, and still doesn't stop them from pulling it. So this goes back to why I love physical media. I have the Mega Drive collection. It's sat on here on a PS4 disc, and I can plug it in, and because the games are like a couple of megabytes big, they're all on the disc. It doesn't require downloads. But yeah, just an odd choice by Sega. We're probably going to see like maybe an Ultimate Edition announced for next year. Maybe,
like an Ultimate Collection. I'd always guarantee it.
But either way. Speaking of collections, we also have some Game Pass news. Dropped your monthly games for November through to December are the following. We've got Metal Slug Tactics coming to cloud, console, and PC as of the 5th, so that's actually out now. We've got Go Mecha Ball coming on the 6th of November. We've got Harold Halibut, which is coming on the 6th of November. The Rewinder on the 6th. Turnip Boy Robs a Bank on the 6th. Yes, that is a real game. Goat Simulator Remastered coming to cloud, PC, and Series X and S on the 7th. That's the new entry. And a Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 coming to cloud, PC, and Series X on the 19th as well. Couple of things leaving. Dungeons 4 Goat Simulator is leaving, so ironically you get Goat Simulator Remastered, but you lose the original. Fair enough. Like a Dragon Ishin, Like a Dragon The Man Who Raised His Name, Persona 5 Tactica, and Somerville are all leaving on the 15th of November, so go play them while you can. Any standout one there, Rob? Bit of a weak month for Game Pass for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we get like Flight Simulators, obviously a one, I guess. But yeah, it's relatively weak, isn't it? But I guess that's to be expected in November.
Yeah, it's
like we got like Black Friday sales dropping.
Yeah,
the end of the month.
They want people to spend their actual money, don't they, rather than just Game Passing it up for life. Moving on to some final quick stories as we round out this show, though. I guess the biggest one I want to touch on is GeForce Now. Like we've all dabbled in GeForce Now on this channel, of course, the cloud gaming roots. They've announced this week that they're going to be making some changes to their priority tiers, or their performance membership, I think it was previously named. So the priority membership is going to be renamed performance membership. And the name change isn't the only thing. So this is reading from our friends over at Cloud Dosage, is they say the membership tier will also get a performance boost. So they're going to update 1440p resolution from 1080p. So you're getting a big jump up in that. Support for ultra-wide resolutions, which is great. Someone who's got an ultra-wide monitor, fantastic. But performance members are going to have the little caveat that's added in. Starting on the 1st of January 2025, GeForce Now will be introducing a 100-hour maximum playtime limit. Any new members who sign up to Performance Ultimate membership will see their playtime limited initially capped at 100 hours. There are some caveats within that. Say if you've got an active subscription before the 1st of January cut-off point, they can get an extra 12 months of actual unlimited access, so how it currently stands. But anything around that, it means you're going to be capped out at 100. And I know, even though Richie's not here, this will piss him off royally, because he hates the fact if you're paying for a premium subscription and you're getting a lesser service than something that's already been available.
Yeah.
I personally don't have time in my life with a child to get 100 hours playtime. So it's no worry for me. And it is quite a large limit. But why the change now? Like, are they reaching capacity on the servers, or?
It's purely the cost of cloud computing now. So it's I think they own all their kind of infrastructure. If they don't, like the cost of actually like getting processing time on like a cloud setup is like at an all-time high just because of AI. So that's super expensive. The actual cost of like just basic electricity now to power these is also insane. There's actually a trend emerging where all the big tech companies like Microsoft, Amazon, they're all building like nuclear power plants. Like those kind of modular nuclear reactors. They're all investing in companies building those because they need to power their kind of AI platforms and cloud computing. So I think this is just a purely commercial thing. It's like we can't afford to keep, because there'll be some like hyper users who are kind of probably mincing.
Yeah, Nvidia have stated that it'll only affect around 6% of active paid members.
Yeah, and I imagine those 6% will be going far, far, far above
the 100.
You know, like yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it purely is like a cost limitations thing.
Well, on the back of costs, they do say if you do hit your playtime, you will be able to purchase further increments of playtime at 15-hour blocks, which it's so weird, like monetizing like just time. Like it's such a business thing.
It's very like backwardsy as well, I think. Isn't
it? For 15 hours, you can get for $2.99 or your local equivalent. For performance members, that's for performance members. Sorry, for unlimited members, it's $5.99 for a further 15 hours. So it's like on top of your subscription, if you hit your cap, you can buy it. It goes back to like the days of data on mobile plans when it's like you have unlimited, but there's a fair usage caveat. And if you hit that, it's like you can still buy more internet, and you're sat there as the consumer going, but I had unlimited. Why do I need to buy more when I had unlimited? Oh, there's a fair usage policy. That means if you use this amount, it's like, right, bullshit.
But unlimited is a very definable word.
It is.
It's very definite.
Asterisks. So yeah, it doesn't impact me. I don't use GeForce. I think it's by far the best performance for cloud gaming out there. And I think if you still are in that wheelhouse, more power to you. I think the 6% of player base, I think, is actually quite high. But like you said, I think it just boils down to it's going to be something they'll probably weather the negative to realistically take the 94% of players who this doesn't impact at all. Plus, it comes with the performance. They've kind of done that shit sandwich thing where they're like, well, we're giving you better resolution, we're giving you more options, we're boosting the performance.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that, if you're one of them 6% of people, it's probably going to cost you more. Sorry, but you'll probably just fork out for it. But GeForce Now. Interesting, making moves in the cloud still, as with Amazon Luna with Death Stranding. Final couple of news stories, Rob. Quick one, Humankind developer Amplitude has gone independent from SEGA, so back to SEGA. These are the guys who did Humankind, and they've done a couple of other things. If you remember, back in March, SEGA also announced a similar sale for the Vancouver-based developer Relic, who've made a lot of like RTS games over the years. They went independent as well. So now it seems like Sega are just cutting ties with maybe smaller studios that aren't making their main franchise ones. So they announced in a statement, Amplitude Studios have followed through a management buyout from senior leadership. So it's essentially the higher-ups at Amplitude have just bought out their own studio from Sega. So great for them. They have their independence. Seemingly they want to focus on making games that maybe Sega were trying to put, like that called a boardroom one, like back to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Higher up wants something, and they've all got together and went, look, if we've got the funds, we can go independent and just don't have to worry about Big Daddy Sega telling us what to do. It's kind of like one of the non-news stories because there's no announcement to be made other than the studio still exists. Thankfully, no one's been laid off. They're just their future's their own. So more power to them, from my point. It also looks like we'll be getting a Warcraft 2 remaster. We got the Warcraft 3. Was it called Reforged? I think that came out, and nobody was happy with it because it performed terribly, like performance-wise. There was a leak ahead of next week's anniversary, so don't quote us on this, but it's probably going to be confirmed by the time you listen to the show. Blizzard servers include the logo, key pieces of artwork, and a lot of theming in and around Warcraft 2, which was land, air, and sea themed. So, I mean, Warcraft 2 and 3, I think, were some of the ones we played loads as a kid. Like I never got into World of Warcraft, but 3 for me was like my go-to RTS game in between Battle for Middle-earth and Age of Empires. It was like that was this is awesome. And then World of Warcraft, kind of similar to what we were saying about I didn't have my parents like consent to get a subscription model back then. It was like this makes no sense. Like, what do you mean you buy a game and you're going to keep paying for the game?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That escaped me, but it's no surprise. Hopefully, it performs better than Warcraft 3, or it looks better. As well. And then the final one's a bit of sad news, Rob, but the voice actor Tony Todd, who recently played Venom in the Spider-Man 2 series, passed away yesterday, actually. Didn't realise he was under any kind of illness or anything like that, but reading from Insomniac's tweet, they put out saying, Insomniac Games is heartbroken by the passing of our friend Tony Todd. He brought so much joy to our studio during the production of Marvel Spider-Man 2 and to many fans around the world with his intimidable voice and presence. We are Venom forever. So yeah, R.I.P. Tony Todd. He's obviously done things like, I think, Candyman as well. He was in Layers of Fear 2, so quite a storied voice acting career. I think he was in Half-Life 2 as well. So
he was actually in an episode of Star Trek as well, way back in the day, which people like hold him in very high regards for.
Yeah, so it died at home on the 6th of November, but there's no reason for it. But yeah, R.I.P. Tony Todd. And I'd imagine a lot of his voice work for the rumoured Venom game is probably already done. I think he actually was interviewed saying he'd recorded. The reason I think the Venom game, even before the Insomniac leaks, was so locked in is because Tony Todd had explicitly in an interview came out and said, like, I recorded hundreds of hours of dialogue, and he said I think they only used like 5% in the game, which led to everyone going like, hang on a minute, you recorded so much and they only use 5% of your dialogue. That means there's probably something else in the pipeline. 100%. And again, when we got the Insomniac leaks, and we know they're doing a Venom game similar in the vein to Miles Morales size and scope, so I think that's going to be next Christmas will be just Venom. And it'll look awesome, it'll play awesome, it'll be fun, and Tony Todd will get his legacy expanded in a standalone game, hopefully.
Yeah, good for him, man.
Good for him. And then, final one, Rob, as we round out this week's show, Mass Effect. I'm glad I've got you on. Getting a TV series in the works at Amazon. Weird one, it's got the Fast and the Furious writer and producer on board to do it, which I wouldn't really pair Fast and the Furious with Mass Effect in terms of the scope and the material it covers, but it's happening. So in line with history tells us that we've now got video games making the jump to TV and movies more than ever before, with varied success, we should say. Where do you sit with a Mass Effect series on Amazon? Is this doomed to die, or is this actually got scope for some fantastic storytelling?
I don't think so. I think like it depends like what expectations they set, and I think the Mass Effect universe doesn't have as much of like a rabid fan base as some of the other Amazon projects have had. Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to it. Get a decent budget behind it. You know, I don't see what damage they could do to that kind of franchise by bringing a new series out. It just, if anything, it expands the world, which I always wanted to learn more about outside of Shepard. So yeah, I'm all for it. Like,
yeah, I'm kind of the same. I really, really enjoyed Fallout. From the Amazon team. So I think if they give it the same reverence and they include BioWare in the decision making and like bring on their team, because I think that's why things like The Last of Us that had Neil Druckmann literally direct an episode of the show and work so closely with the creators. I think if they did that with Fallout as well, Todd Howard was pretty much there involved with the decision making, the story. So I think doing that with Mass Effect, I think, as you said, the characters, the story they can tell is great in scope. I want to know more about that universe. My worry with all things sci-fi is, does the budget match the scope of what it could be? Because if the ship doesn't look right, or the like Fallout was great, but it was grounded. A lot of Mass Effect takes place in space, and I think that's where like the cost starts to eat into your budget.
Yeah. And also we know like CGI like standards now, they're very hit or miss, right? So it could end up looking like complete garbage at all.
And you've got things like the Reapers and all the other races. Like, it's all well and good painting someone blue. That can be done. That's been done since Star Wars and Star Trek era. But when you're trying to make like the like grunt, what were they called? The big like the turtle type frog creatures.
I know what you mean.
You know, the entire race who went through the whole genophage wipeout thing, like that.
Torben, is it?
Maybe, yeah. But like, but then I'm thinking like actually. Star Wars, like the reboot trilogy, they did really well with practical. Like, I'm thinking of like Simon Pegg's character who was like taking the money off Rey, work behind the counter. Like, that kind of looks like.
It all depends on the approach to take. Krogans were called.
Krogans, that's the one. Yeah, they were so cool. Like they're basically the angry dwarfs of the Mass Effect world. I know.
Basically,
a bit shorter, a bit angry. Most of the entire species have been wiped out. I do love that, and I'm here for the next Mass Effect game. I didn't play Andromeda, but I really enjoyed the trilogy. So,
Andromeda for me was a bit too outside of like the story I'd been invested in, so I just didn't pick it up.
if you were going to cast it, if they did go with Shepard, is there anyone off the top of your head who you'd have for Shepard? Because my brain goes to the guy from Lost. But I think that's just because when Mass Effect in its heyday, Lost was in its heyday.
What, like
it's just generic.
What was he called? Jack?
Jack,
Lost?
yeah, just generic white guy with shaved head, which Shepard is. Unless you played as Fem Shep, of course.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, because he's like relatively older, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, he's a commander, isn't he? So he's a veteran in his field. But like there is such a large cast, isn't it, that they could recruit and bring in.
Yeah.
Don't do Kate Blanchett for Fem Shep, because the Borderlands movie showed that she should stay away from all video game sci-fi.
The trouble is now, like, I'm not kind of up to like, all the people I think of are in like the mid 40s to late 40s, because like that's like yeah. No, I haven't got a good one to go for yet.
Seth Green has to have a cameo in it.
Like
he could just play Joker. I'd be quite content with him just being himself, like reprising the role. You've got like Garrus, Liara. There's a lot of obviously human characters you can lead into as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen Amell apparently did the voice of Jacob in it. Didn't know that. But anyway, that brings us, Rob, to an end of episode 65/436. Can you believe we've done 436 podcasts on this channel?
That's a big number, isn't it?
We had our anniversary last month. Celebrated 5 years, and this is 65 for this show, 436 overall, 5 years, and hopefully 2,000. We've set, me and Richie setting our sights to hit 2,000 by the end of the year. Seems reasonable. So we need 35 more. That's it.
I thought you were like weirdly saying 2,000 episodes, and I was like, Jesus.
No, not quite yet. But yeah, 35 subs away, everyone. So before you round out this show, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content that we do here. I like our weekly live streams. Me and Rich will be back with Gears of War 2. Remember, members, Guild Heroes, get the exclusive Indiana Jones first looks or retro first looks leading up to the Great Circle. A new one's going to drop every single week. You get them before everybody else. Of course, wonderful Discord. Information in the description down below. Find us all there. Follow us on social feeds at GamerGuildTV. But that's been it for this week's show. Rob, thank you very much for popping in and chatting games with us. I think it's been a very good week to have you on. The news has been very up your street.
Yeah, it's very matched and it's my interests.
And it's been nice to have you back on the show. Richie will be back next week for our regularly scheduled programming, but that's been it. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
We've been GamerGuildTV. And remember, folks, play whatever makes you the happiest. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.